Dole is known for bananas, pineapples, and its famous Dole Whip. But what happens when the ingredients the company claims are powering you leave you with watery diarrhea instead? One word that causes instant panic in the food industry is listeria. In February 2024, this was the term that launched a mass recall from Dole after the discovery that some of its salad kits were potentially contaminated with Listeria monocytogenes.
Listeria is different from most other bacteria because it can grow in the refrigerator and spread to other food.
This bacteria can cause nausea, abdominal pain, and diarrhea in healthy patients, and can be fatal to young children, the elderly, and the immunocompromised. It's also been linked to stillbirths and miscarriages. Alarm bells were raised after it was found that the salad kits, including Chopped Kit Avocado Ranch, Supreme Kit Southwest Salad, and Salad Kit Bacon Ranch Crunch, were processed alongside a line of cheese that was recalled by Lopez Foods due to listeria contamination. Dole made a public statement, reading, "This recall notification is being issued due to the potential for cross-contamination of cheese contained in certain master packs by cheese potentially contaminated with Listeria monocytogenes from our packaged cheese supplier." The salads had already been distributed across 25 states, plus Alberta, British Columbia, New Brunswick, Ontario, and Quebec in Canada. Anyone who'd recently purchased a Dole salad was urged to check that no affected packages were lurking in their refrigerator or freezer and throw them away if they were discovered there. The products in question were marked with best if used by dates between February 3rd and February 21st. Fortunately, nobody reported any illness. Leafy greens are especially prone to listeria because they grow close to the ground, where they can easily pick up bacteria from contaminated soil or animal manure. It doesn't help that a lot of these greens are consumed raw, which eliminates the possibility of high temperatures killing off the bacteria. That's why it's always a good idea that you wash your veggies before eating or cooking, and why Dole ended up having to issue a nationwide recall for every product containing its iceberg lettuce in January 2022.
Let us go.
After equipment that had been used to harvest the lettuce tested positive for Listeria monocytogenes, Dole was forced to pull anything made with lettuce at its production plants in Springfield, Ohio, and Soledad, California. This covered a multitude of products, including those sold under brand names such as Walmart's Market Side, Aldi's, Little Salad Bar, Kroger, and President's Choice. It also expanded beyond the U.S., with multiple Canadian provinces, including Alberta, British Columbia, and Saskatchewan, affected by the recall as well. Luckily, no illnesses were reported, and no non-lettuce products were implicated in the recall. However, anyone who found one of the products in their homes was encouraged to not eat them. What made Dole's January 2022 lettuce recall all the more headline-worthy is the fact that it was the brand's second such recall in less than a month. In December 2021, Dole had already been forced to recall a whopping 180 varieties of salad sold under the Dole name, as well as Lidl, Kroger, Market Side, Naturally Better, Nature's Promise, and Simply Nature. Again, this was all because of listeria. The brand announced that all Dole-branded and private label salads packaged at its plant in Bessemer City, North Carolina, and Yuma, Arizona, were at risk of contamination, with Listeria monocytogenes having been identified in a garden salad and lettuce after random tests conducted by the states of Georgia and Michigan.
Bacteria.
The bacteria in question was a genetic match for a strain that the FDA and CDC claimed was responsible for at least 16 illnesses since 2014. Of these victims, 12 were hospitalized and 2 died. In addition to going through the usual motions of asking customers to check any salad they may have at home, Dole closed both facilities for full sanitization. However, some questioned why it took so long to take action if cases had been recorded for 7 years. According to food safety attorney Bill Marler, there were likely ongoing low levels of bacteria in these facilities that weren't picked up in early investigations. On June 24, 2021, it was Dole's fruit, not its veggies, that spurred a recall. Cases of fresh Dole blueberries were recalled due to fears that they were contaminated with the parasite Cyclospora. Once consumed via food or drink, Cyclospora can infect the intestinal tract and cause cyclosporiasis, the symptoms of which include watery diarrhea, vomiting, stomach pain, and nausea.
Don't throw up! Don't throw up!
These are typically treated with a round of antibiotics. However, like most foodborne illnesses, symptoms can be much more serious for those with weakened immune systems. While no berry-related illnesses were reported, Dole pulled 6, 18, and 24-ounce and pint-sized packages from stores in Illinois, Maine, New York, and Wisconsin, plus Alberta and British Columbia in Canada. Customers were told to check if their berries bore a best if used by date between May 28th and June 9th, 2021, and discard any that featured certain lot codes listed on the FDA website. It was unclear how the parasite found its way into the blueberries, but it's typically spread when produce is sprayed with contaminated water or handled by those who are already infected. The recall came during peak cyclospora season. Back in November 2020, tracking down romaine lettuce could be a real challenge. At the beginning of the month, another company, Tanamura and Antle Inc., had recalled 3,396 cartons of packaged romaine. The lettuce, which was contaminated with E. coli bacteria, was pulled from over 1,100 Walmart stores after 12 people fell ill and 5 were hospitalized. Just weeks later, a packet of Dole organic romaine lettuce also tested positive for E. coli when the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development collected a random sample in a grocery store. Despite the fact that this wasn't linked to any reported illnesses or complaints, Dole pulled 2 varieties of romaine that were harvested on 2 specific dates, October 23rd and October 26th, 2020. Company spokespeople stressed that this was a different strain of E. coli than the one that triggered Tanamura and Antle's recall. A significant listeria outbreak in 2015 and 2016 was ultimately traced back to Dole packaged salads. All affected salads were produced at Dole's facility in Springfield, Ohio, which subsequently shut its doors for 4 months. This decision, combined with the recall itself, cost Dole a reported $25.5 million. While the CDC began investigating the outbreak in September 2015, it only linked it to Dole products in January 2016. The outbreak affected multiple products, including those sold under the Dole name and other private labels, across 23 states and 3 Canadian provinces. By the time the outbreak was declared over in March 2016, 12 people had been hospitalized and 1 Michigan resident died after contracting listeria. The outbreak didn't work wonders for Dole's reputation. In the wake of the outbreak, the U.S. Justice Department launched a criminal investigation into the company. A government report claimed that Dole knew about the potentially dangerous bacteria in its Ohio facility over a year before the recall, and federal investigators found that it had failed to carry out the necessary tests to mitigate the risks of contamination.
Oh, you know what? That's actually very good. Now, there's a subtle hint of...
They claimed that Dole didn't test the surfaces that came into contact with food, and instead conducted its testing in other spots around the plant, which would have reduced the risk of finding listeria. In 2017, Dole also settled 2 civil lawsuits in regard to the outbreak. The same processing plant in Springfield, Ohio, generated controversy long before Dole started recalling its salads in 2016. The facility was at the heart of a 2015 outbreak when routine safety testing by Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development identified salmonella in a single package of Dole's bagged spinach.
Salmonella.
While this recall wasn't as big as the one in 2016, it still affected about 33,600 bags of spinach distributed across 13 states. Dole spokesperson William Goldfield told USA Today, "The FDA told us about the test yesterday, and we immediately began recalling the product. I believe the FDA is going through the plant right now, and we expect to get back up and running soon." Fortunately, unlike the packaged salad outbreak a year later, no illnesses were reported. This is all the more lucky when you consider the fact that salmonella, a bacteria that is most commonly associated with chicken but can impact all kinds of food, kills an estimated 420 people in the U.S. every year, according to the CDC. On April 14, 2012, a recall was issued by Dole after more random testing, this time courtesy of the state of New York, found salmonella bacteria in bags of Dole's 7 lettuces salad. The salad had already been distributed to stores across 15 states, sparking calls for customers to ditch 756 cases of lettuce. All of the products covered by the recall featured a use-by date of April 11, 2012. This meant that, at least theoretically, most of the salad would have already been consumed or thrown out by the time the recall notice circulated. While no illnesses were reported and no other products were affected by the recall, any customers who'd purchased Dole 7 lettuces salad were encouraged to contact a healthcare provider if they developed any symptoms of salmonella. One of the biggest recalls to hit Dole came in the wake of a massive E. coli outbreak in 2006. Dole is the parent company of Natural Selection Foods, which produced the bagged spinach that caused the outbreak. Over 200 people were infected over the course of the outbreak. At least 103 people were hospitalized, and 31 developed a type of kidney failure known as hemolytic uremic syndrome. 3 people died as a result of their infections. Having collected 13 bags of spinach from ill consumers, the FDA managed to establish that they were all processed on August 15, 2006. It used the production codes to trace the spinach back to a ranch in San Benito, California. There, the strain of E. coli was identified in water and the feces of both cattle and wild pigs that were to be found in the area. The FDA found evidence of wild pigs around the areas used to grow spinach, but said it couldn't make a definitive call as to how exactly the spinach was contaminated.
Well, we really don't know.
Kevin Riley, Deputy Director for Prevention Services at the California Department of Health Services, told CIDRAP in 2007, "This is the first time we found a clear link between an individual with a contaminated product and taken that link down to the farm level." According to the FDA, E. coli is primarily spread when the feces of infected persons or animals, some of whom may be asymptomatic, come into contact with food or water. With that in mind, it really is at least a bit horrifying how often E. coli outbreaks force big brands to pull products from grocery store shelves. In October 2005, E. coli made yet another appearance in Dole's recall history, this time in bags of 3 varieties of lettuce: classic romaine, American blend, and greener selection, all of which bore a best if used by date of September 23, 2005. By the time the FDA announced the recall, however, these products should theoretically have already run their course in store. Still, the overarching fear for public health officials was, as always, that some people may have had the lettuce at home without realizing.
How long has this been in here?
The Minnesota Department of Health first raised the alarm about illnesses linked to Dole lettuce purchased at the state's Rainbow Foods grocery store outlets. However, given that lettuce bearing the same production code was also distributed nationwide, the recall expanded. Dr. Robert Brackett, then the FDA Center for Food Safety and Applied Nutrition Director, announced, given the severity of this illness, FDA believes an urgent warning to consumers is needed. Ultimately, the bacteria infected a total of 32 people in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Oregon, with multiple individuals requiring hospitalization.